I spent 4 months convinced my dog had a behavioral problem, 2 vet visits, 1 behaviorist, hundreds of dollars. The answer was a pot on my windowsill that cost $12. I removed it. The behavior stopped within a week. Everything in this video comes from my own home, my own animals, and people I know personally. Every plant on this list was connected to a behavioral change that took far too long to trace back. I wish someone had shown me this before I brought any of them through my front door. What you're about to hear is what I learned the hard way, so you do not have to. If you are not subscribed, do it right now. Every week I put out content like this. Things I learned the hard way, so you do not have to. Hit that button. Now. Plant 1. Catnip. This was the plant that cost me 2 peaceful cats. Catnip contains nepetalactone, a compound that binds to feline olfactory receptors and triggers a response in the amygdala and hypothalamus. These are the brain regions governing emotion, arousal, and territorial behavior. The result is not simply playfulness. In sensitive cats, it triggers a documented neurological response, followed by a rebound phase of agitation, aggression, and hypersensitivity to touch and sound that most owners completely miss. The rolling and vocalizing lasts 6 to 10 minutes. What follows, particularly in anxious or territorial cats, is a period of heightened irritability, unprovoked swatting, and redirected aggression toward other pets and people in the same space. What makes a potted catnip plant specifically dangerous is that it does not require direct contact to affect a cat. It releases nepetalactone continuously through transpiration. A cat living with one indoor is experiencing ongoing low-level neurological stimulation all day, every day, with no resolution between exposures. Baseline irritability climbs week by week. Approximately 30% of cats carry a genetic variant that produces no nepetalactone response. For the remaining 70%, this is a real and documented risk. I learned it the hard way, and removing that plant stopped the aggression within 10 days. Dogs show minimal response to nepetalactone, but ingestion causes mild sedation followed by vomiting and diarrhea. Its own behavioral stress cascade that owners attribute to illness rather than the plant sitting nearby. Controlled, infrequent exposure to dried catnip in a dedicated play context is significantly less disruptive than a living plant releasing compounds continuously in a living space. Plant 2. Eucalyptus. A friend watched her dog deteriorate for 3 months before we figured out the cause, and it was not even a living plant. It was a dried eucalyptus arrangement sitting on her console table. Eucalyptus contains 1,8-cineol eucalyptol, a volatile organic compound released continuously from both living and dried plant material at room temperature. Dogs have approximately 300 million olfactory receptors compared to the human count of around 6 million. A compound that registers as a faint background scent to you hits a dog at a concentration roughly 50 times more intense per receptor activation. At those concentrations, eucalyptol produces documented elevations in cortisol, increased heart rate, and all the behavioral indicators of chronic stress. Pacing, lip licking, hyperreactivity, and the inability to settle that looks exactly like anxiety because it functionally is anxiety. The dog's nervous system is under sustained olfactory stress it cannot escape in a confined indoor space. The behavioral change is not immediate and obvious. It builds across days and weeks, gradually raising the dog's baseline arousal level until behaviors emerge that seem disconnected from any cause. 3 months is not unusual. My friend spent those 3 months trying supplements and schedule changes before a single phone call solved it. The ASPCA lists eucalyptus as toxic to both dogs and cats. Cats show more acute symptoms including drooling, vomiting, and neurological signs at sufficient exposure levels. The key distinction with eucalyptus is that drying the plant does not neutralize its volatile compound release. Eucalyptol continues evaporating from dried stems and arrangements for weeks to months after cutting. A dried eucalyptus wreath, a dried stem arrangement, a bundle hanging in a hallway, all of them are continuing to affect the animals living in the same space. My friend learned this when she replaced her living eucalyptus with a dried arrangement thinking she had solved the problem, and the dog's behavior did not improve until the dried stems went out too. Plant 3, peace lily. This was the plant that taught me the difference between a behavioral problem and a pain response, and I am embarrassed by how long it took me to understand what I was actually watching. Peace lily contains calcium oxalate raphides, microscopic needle-shaped crystals that embed in the soft tissue of the mouth, tongue, and throat when the plant is chewed or mouthed. The pain is immediate, intense, and ongoing. A pet experiencing that pain has no way to communicate what happened or where it hurts. What follows is an animal in physical pain with no way to identify the source. And pain in animals produces exactly the behavioral signs that get misread as aggression, fearfulness, or sudden personality change, restlessness, inability to settle, flinching when touched near the head and neck, reactive behavior toward things that previously caused no reaction. All of it is pain behavior, not a behavioral problem, pain. Veterinary behaviorists consistently document that unexplained onset aggression in previously calm pets correlates significantly with exposure to plants containing calcium oxalate crystals, including peace lily, Dieffenbachia, and philodendron. The ASPCA lists peace lily as toxic to both dogs and cats. In cats, kidney damage has been documented following significant exposure. The specific danger is the plant's appearance and reputation. Nothing about a peace lily communicates risk. It is universally regarded as gentle and beautiful. It is one of the most commonly gifted houseplants in the country, sent to new parents, to people recovering from illness, to new homeowners. And it is in millions of homes with pets right now with no warning attached. The ASPCA receives thousands of peace lily exposure calls annually. The majority involve pets in homes where the owner had no knowledge of any risk. Plant 4, rosemary. I attributed a year of my dog's behavioral changes to aging before I understood what was actually happening in my kitchen. Rosemary contains camphor and eucalyptal, along with alpha-pinene and borneol. At dog nose concentrations in a confined indoor space, this compound profile activates multiple olfactory receptor pathways simultaneously. The documented behavioral effect in dogs is hyperarousal, an elevated baseline alertness state that prevents normal rest cycles. Camphor specifically is a documented CNS stimulant in mammals. In a small kitchen with a large potted rosemary plant, ambient camphor can reach concentrations producing measurable neurological stimulation in sensitive dogs. A dog in hyperarousal cannot complete normal sleep architecture. Chronic sleep deprivation combined with low-level CNS stimulation produces increased reactivity, startle responses, and the inability to settle that I spent months attributing to his age. He was 7. I told myself what I was watching was normal aging. It was not. It was a dog whose nervous system could not ignore a plant on the counter above him every single day. Moving the rosemary outside ended the restlessness within 3 weeks. Cats show a milder response than dogs, though camphor at sufficient levels causes neurological symptoms in cats as well. The practical takeaway is that the herb garden many people keep on their kitchen counter, rosemary, mint, and eucalyptus together in a row of pots, combines multiple olfactory stressors in the room where their pets spend the most time. That combination is worth thinking about regardless of which individual plant is the primary driver. 4 plants in. 3 more to go, and the next 3 include a plant that makes pets display behavior identical to a hormonal disorder, one that I had in 3 different rooms before understanding what it was doing, and the plant sitting in more pet-owning homes than any other on this list that almost nobody connects to behavioral problems. Stay with me. Plant 5. Pothos. I had this in 3 different rooms: living room, bedroom, home office. I recommended it to people as the easiest houseplant available. That recommendation is one I genuinely regret. Pothos contains calcium oxalate raphides, the same needle crystals found in peace lily, causing immediate oral burning and pain in any pet that mouths the trailing stems or leaves. But the behavioral impact of pothos goes beyond the acute pain response in a way that no other plant on this list replicates. The trailing growth habit creates a continuous movement stimulus at pet head height. Long stems swaying in air currents register as prey movement to both dogs and cats, keeping them in sustained predatory arousal that elevates baseline stress hormones and reduces tolerance for normal household interactions. The plant's most appealing visual quality is simultaneously its most behaviorally disruptive feature in a pet household. The cycle this creates is specific and damaging. Movement triggers investigation. Investigation leads to mouthing. Mouthing delivers calcium oxalate crystal pain. Pain causes frustration. Frustration gets redirected toward other pets, toward people, toward objects. I had a dog and a cat both in this cycle simultaneously across 3 rooms before I understood what was generating it. The ASPCA lists pothos as toxic to both dogs and cats. Symptoms include oral pain, vomiting, drooling, and difficulty swallowing. The behavioral impact layer on top of the physical toxicity is what makes pothos uniquely harmful in a pet-owning home. It is not just a toxic plant, it is a toxic plant that continuously invites investigation through movement. It is also the most universally recommended beginner houseplant sold in the country. Every garden centre, every grocery store plant section, every online houseplant guide recommends it first. The gap between how widely it is recommended and how poorly suited it is to pet households is one of the things I find genuinely frustrating now that I understand what it does. Plant 6, Chrysanthemum 3 autumns, 3 rounds of allergy treatment. One conversation with a veterinary toxicologist that made the previous 3 years make complete sense. Chrysanthemums contain pyrethrins, the natural insecticidal compounds that are the direct basis for synthetic pyrethroid insecticides used in flea and tick products. Pyrethrins disrupt sodium ion channel function in the nervous system. Cats are dramatically more sensitive to pyrethrins than dogs or humans because they lack the liver enzyme glucuronal transferase required to metabolize them efficiently. A cat in continuous proximity to flowering chrysanthemums, which release pyrethrins through transpiration, and regularly grooming pyrethrin residue from her coat is receiving ongoing low-dose exposure her liver cannot clear at the rate of intake. The symptoms this produces: hypersalivation, skin twitching, hypersensitivity to touch, and the irritability that accompanies persistent dermal discomfort present identically to seasonal allergies, which is exactly how my vet treated it for 3 consecutive years. The 4th autumn, I did not buy chrysanthemums. No symptoms. A completely normal autumn for the first time in 3 years. Dogs show a milder response, primarily drooling and gastrointestinal upset, but dermal hypersensitivity from contact with chrysanthemum sap produces scratching, face rubbing, and the persistent irritability of an animal that cannot relieve a skin sensation it cannot identify. The ASPCA lists chrysanthemum as toxic to both dogs and cats, and it is among the most commonly reported toxic plant exposures in companion animal veterinary practice, a statistic that reflects how commonly it is kept indoors as a seasonal plant in homes, with pets who have no idea what it contains. The seasonal pattern is the specific trap. Owners who buy chrysanthemums every autumn and whose pets show symptoms every autumn rarely connect the two because the assumption is always seasonal. Seasonal allergies, seasonal mood changes, seasonal behavioral shifts. The plant fits perfectly into that narrative and the real cause stays hidden. Plant 7. Aloe vera. 2 years of food elimination trials. 2 years of dietary changes. The answer was a pot I could have moved in 30 seconds. Aloe vera contains saponins and anthraquinones concentrated in the latex layer, the yellowish fluid between the outer leaf skin and the clear gel interior. When ingested, anthraquinones cause severe gastrointestinal irritation, vomiting, and diarrhea within hours. Beyond the gastrointestinal effects, allosaponins affect red blood cell integrity. Documented cases of aloe ingestion causing hemolytic anemia in dogs appear in veterinary literature. The behavioral changes gastrointestinal pain produces in dogs are consistent and frequently misread. Restlessness, inability to settle, abdominal sensitivity, reactive behavior when touched near the midsection. A dog experiencing this pain has no way to communicate the source. It presents as behavioral problems because pain always does. The specific pattern my dog showed, periodic episodes of vomiting separated by completely normal periods, was consistent with intermittent aloe ingestion, not dietary sensitivity, not a food allergy, a plant I would have recommended to anyone as completely harmless. A dog with developing anemia from repeated aloe exposure shows progressive lethargy and behavioral dullness that owners routinely attribute to aging or unexplained mood changes. The connection to a plant regarded universally as healing and gentle does not occur to most people, including most veterinarians who are not specifically looking for it. The ASPCA lists aloe vera as toxic to both dogs and cats. It remains one of the most trusted and most commonly kept houseplants in the country, and one of the most consistently overlooked causes of chronic low-level pet health and behavioral problems in homes where animals have access to it. Every plant on this list produced a behavioral change that lasted longer than it should have. Every single one was solved by removing or relocating a pot, not by medication, not by training, not by anything expensive or complicated. The pattern across all of them is the same: a plant that looks harmless, a pet that has no way to tell you what is wrong, and an owner who blames the animal for something that was never the animal's fault. You now know what 10 of those plants are and exactly what to do about them. Go through your home today, check every potted plant, cross-reference anything uncertain with the ASPCA Toxic Plant Database at aspca.org. If your pet shows any of the behaviors described, remove the plant for 2 weeks and observe. The 2-week trial costs nothing. The information is free. Your pet cannot tell you what it needs except through behavior you now know how to read. If this answered even one question you have been living with, share it with one pet-owning friend. One share, 10 seconds. They might have a peace lily on their coffee table and a dog they think has a behavioral problem. Drop a comment. Tell me which plant on this list is in your home right now. I read every one. Subscribe. Hit the bell. See you in the next one.